Hello guys, and welcome back to my second part of the series of tutorials on the B377 by A2A simulations. I'm in the cockpit here and we're continuing to climb up to our cruise level of 30,000 feet. The one thing I said, there's a few things I said I was going to change at the end of part one. One was my heading, so I'm going to do that now. I'm going to press Shift 5 to bring up my navigation panel. And you can see we're pointing off to the right hand side. You see, we 0 is due north, obviously. We want to be going a heading of about 340 to be...
Coffee, tea, Sanka?
Alright, that's Heidi, my stewardess, giving me some coffee. So we want to be heading about 340.
Very hot.
So if I zoom out, you can see our general plan of action here. Is to go, you know, up England instead of out towards the wash. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to see this knob
there
here.
You go.
Thank you, sweetie.
I'm going to turn that to the left, and in turning that to the left slightly, as you can see, we are banking. So it's a very, very simplistic, beautifully simple system here, this autopilot system, where this knob here is your altitude, it's your level hold basically. So if whenever you get up to 30,000 feet and you want to automatically hold that altitude, you just hit that button and it will do so. And then this little this little dial here is your pitch. So if you want to pitch your nose up into the air to climb, you pull that back. If you want to go down, you go forward. And then this is left and right by twisting that handle left and right. I'm just looking at my compass right here. And as our needle starts to come round to fit into our heading bug, I'm going to just put my cursor over the knob and I'm going to twiddle my middle mouse button until it goes from 8 to 0. And by the way, I just recently got a bigger screen with a larger resolution, but that unfortunately means that oh no, wrong way. That unfortunately means that my computer now has more pixels to handle, which means that the performance is slightly less than it was in part 1. So Fraps is recording.
Again. This is your captain speaking. We are currently climbing to our cruise altitude. Upon reaching this altitude, we will dial the engines back to a nice cruise for you all.
So that was my my chief pilot talking to my passengers. So what I did is I just fine-tuned that with the middle mouse button so that it reads 0. The positive numbers are banking to the left. The negative numbers are banking to the right. So that's what that does. Okay, so as you can see, we are at 11,800 feet right now and climbing at roughly 980 feet per minute, as is said on this dial, at heading of 341 and a speed of 132 knots, which is it's a fair climbing speed. I mean, we could be doing more, we could be doing less, but you know, it's not too bad. Actually, I'd say that's a slightly too steep of a climb, because as I can see up here in my panel system to watch, my engine number 2 is 241 Celsius, and I don't like the fact that it's 241 Celsius. I'd like it in the 230 range. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my pitch bug down slightly, and basically exactly the same thing. You put your mouse over that little thing, you twiddle your middle mouse button until it comes down. So it was at 10 degrees, which is quite steep. I mean, I don't usually climb at 10 degrees. It's now at 7.6 degrees. So now, as you can see, my altitude, well, I actually want more like 500 feet per minute, not, oh no, wait. Yeah, there we go, 500 feet per minute is 600 feet per minute. Okay, so that's still rising. That's fine. As long as it's not 900 feet per minute, you know, I mean, that's a bit too steep. And now you'll see my speed is coming up 143 knots already. And that now means that I can bring my engines back ever so slightly. So just pulling them from 45 to about 43 inches of manifold pressure. Yeah. So in this tutorial, this second part, there's actually not much flying to be done, since what we've done is we've set the aircraft to be automatically flown by the autopilot. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the back here, and we are going to have some fun fiddling around with the flight engineer's controls. Yeah, this is going to be cool. So in part 1 you may have been a bit dismayed by seeing me put on my live engineer here and letting him completely take control of the panels. I'm sure you'd be interested in seeing how to manually tweak these settings, which you'll want to do like whenever you get comfortable with them. But when you're beginning, as I say, it's probably best just to leave the live engineer to do his work. And A2A have done an amazing job at really modeling the system very well. So that's my cabin pressurization, not my vertical climb rate. It looks like the vertical climb rate though. Let me see. See that one there? Vertical speed indicator is 780 roughly feet per minute, and this one here, it looks pretty much the same, but it's not. That just threw me for a minute. Okay, I don't know why I've got air traffic control. It's because I tweaked some settings. Alright, so without much further ado, let's have some fun. So I am going to turn off the engineer. I'm going to leave him in charge of the turbos and the pressurization for the time being. Oh goodness me, yes, one thing I must have done at around 10,000 feet in this plane, you need to change your engine mixtures from auto rich to auto lean. So I'm going to do that now. I should have done that at 10,000 feet, but I was yapping and you know. There we go. I think I briefly explained a mixture to you in part 1, but I'll just go over it again as simply as I can. It confused me when I first begun, because it's, you know, I mean, what exactly is it? Basically, mixture is the mixture. Well, it's more like the ratio of fuel to oxygen that is going into your engines. Like, turn you off, please. Whatever. Okay, so it's the mixture of oxygen and fuel that is being put into your engines. But obviously, as you get higher and higher in the atmosphere, there's less oxygen the further up you go, which means that if there's less oxygen all of a sudden that's going into your engine, you're going to also have to have less fuel that's going into your engine to keep the ratio of fuel and oxygen the same, to make sure that combustion is still happening as it should. So as you go higher up, you're going to want to have less fuel, which means you're going to want to have a leaner mixture. That's what that means. So you want to go from auto rich to auto lean around 10,000 feet. So as we descend and we come down to, as we're descending down to 10,000 feet again on our descent, we're going to want to change that back over to auto rich. Yes, that's one point that I should have mentioned. Let me just double check my speeds, and yeah, okay, 139 knots. Okay, so we'll stabilize around that. We're stabilized at about 640 feet per minute. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, so we can play around with the things now. Let me just have an outside view here. And all seems well with the world. We'll get up to a certain altitude, and then you'll start seeing vapor trails come from our engines, which looks quite cool. Especially from the tower view down on the ground. You'll see. We'll look like a modern day jet, but we're not. Okay. Enough stalling. Let's get these engines doing silly things. Okay. So to begin with, what I'm going to start manipulating is the carburetor temperatures, since that's kind of the least dangerous thing of these two things that we're going to be manipulating. Basically, as I mentioned before, your carburetor air is the air that is just about to be pumped into your cylinders, right? So if this is super cold, then it's going to cool down your engines. If this is super hot, you're already pumping super hot into an already hot cylinder, which is going to cause them to overheat even more. So you want to keep these pretty much right in the green section. So you want the needles to be pretty much horizontal, just as they are. As you can see, my flight engineer has done a great job of fine-tuning the intercooler flaps to make sure that these stay, perfect. But of course, we're not looking for perfection at the moment. What we're looking for is to see the system, to see how the system changes over time with the different inputs that we give. So to begin with, what I'll do is I will close. Yeah, why not? I'll close all the flaps and see what happens to the temperature, and then I'll open them all the way and see what happens again. So they're at about 2.5 inches on each flap. So we've got these two gang switches here for all the intercooler flap switches. So if we pull them from open to close, we'll close them all. Right. Now, this should start happening fairly quickly. Let's just have a look. 26, okay, so they're going up. 27 Celsius, 28. So what's happening basically is these flaps are letting cool air into the carburetor air, cooling down the air. But since these flaps are closed, there's no cold air getting in, and it's heating up our carburetor air, which in turn, if we let these like go skyrocketing up to overheating, it's going to kill our engines. So we've got to really make sure that that doesn't happen.
Our carburetor temps are starting to get hot.
So our flight engineers already just told us, and as you can see up in our crew reports, you can see in yellow warning sign carb air. So now we're going to bring them back. Let's go to like 4.5 inches just to see what will happen. Yeah, so that's 40 Celsius now. Yeah, 39, 38, 37, 36, 35. Yeah, so they come up and down fairly quickly. I imagine that they change quickly because the wind flow that's rushing into the engine is causing the temperature to change quite rapidly. So it's just about back to where it was. So we're going to just manipulate those flaps and put them back to 2.5 inches where they were before we started messing around with them. And that means that those temperatures should stabilize as they were before we touched them. Right, so that's what we've done there. And as you can see, the engine, the
Pardon me,
temperatures...
Captain and crew? Coffee, tea, Sanka?
Yes, thank you. Heidi's giving us more coffee and tea. Alright, so as you can see, our engine temperatures are pretty good.
Take a sip.
I mean, we could punch some more throttle in there now.
There you go.
Which I'm going to do. Probably from 40.
There you go.
Thank you.
About 46 inches of manifold pressure.
Thank you.
Just so that we can eke some more performance out of the engines without killing them. So the basic philosophy of engine management in this aircraft is your takeoff and your climb are the most important times for managing the systems, because what you're trying to do in your takeoff and in your climb, you're wanting to pull as much power from the engines and to be able to climb. But of course you don't want your engines to catch fire, so you're riding that very fine line between your engines catching fire and not having enough power, from the engines to generate speed. And as you can see, my temperatures are now still rising slightly. 222, 222, 229, 218. Okay, so as you can see, each engine is behaving separately. And let's just see our speed. Our speed's gone up to 140 knots. Our vertical speed has come down to about 840 per minute. And we're up at about, we're coming up to 20,000 feet now. So if we go outside, we may be able to see our, no, we still don't have any engine vapor. We'll see that soon though, I think, as we come through 20,000 feet and beyond. That's cool, that's a nice view from underneath. It's a nice plane. So as we get up through 20,000 feet, the engines should start to have vapor trails, and as I said, the turbo boost is being handled by our flight engineer. Just get these two views back. Oh, 236. Okay, number 2 engine, since it's the warmest, is what we're going to read all the other engines off, because if we read for the hottest engine, then we know that, you know, none of the other ones are going to have any problems. So 237, that's starting to get a little bit hot. But actually I think it's stabilizing just where we want it. So we could actually open to combat that slightly higher temperature. We could open the number 2 cowl flap a little bit more, just to compensate, to bring that specific temperature down. So our cowl flaps here will go open, and we'll just open it a tiny bit. Now remember what I said in part 1 about the cowl flaps. If you open them beyond 3 inches whenever you're flying in the air, that engine will start shaking itself to bits, and that's a very bad thing. You can only open your cowl flaps all the way to 9 or 10 inches whenever you're idling your engines on the ground, and that's to keep them from overheating while you're on the hot tarmac. But as soon as you rev your engines up, as they are now, you cannot have them more than 3 inches. Now let's see. That's come down slightly, to 237 from opening that cowl flap a little bit more. I'm going to open number 3 a little bit more. Okay, and we'll watch those. Now, one thing about flaps on the aircraft. Oh, as you can see, I think, yep, we've got our we've got ourselves some. That doesn't actually look like we're climbing when we're looking at. Let's look at our climb rate again. No, we're climbing. Okay, we're climbing. It just didn't look like we're actually climbing from our trails there. They look pretty horizontal out from the back of the aircraft, but no, apparently we're climbing. There's the view, and it looks like we're a modern day airliner, but we are not. And as soon as we get into our cruise phase, you'll really be able to see the speed of this aircraft, and the reason why it was a nice aircraft. I must say though, they did have performance issues with the engines. I think they had a few safety issues with this aircraft. I believe one of these aircraft had to ditch off the coast of California, I think it was, with a few lives lost. So they weren't the best. They still hadn't tweaked the performance of these prop liners. And the problem with prop liners is that this is on the very edge of jet aviation, basically. This airliner represents pretty much the furthest you can go with a prop aircraft before it starts becoming more safer to be a jet airliner. Well, I mean, it's obviously going to be a little bit safer with a jet airliner, simply because the complexity of these prop liners, in the advanced stage that they are, they've got so many moving parts and so many things going on with them. You've got turbo, you've got like exhaust turbo boosts and boosts and turbos and boosts, and you know, superchargers and double stage superchargers and all this amazing stuff to make this plane go so high and to fly so fast, that there's a lot of things that could go wrong with it. And that's what they found, that basically by the time jets started coming along in post-war civil aviation, pretty much that's where the change happened, because they realized that jets were just, you know, the way to go. But anyway, as I was going to say, sorry, to do with flaps on this aircraft, as you can see, you see our cowl flaps there on the sides of the engines there. If you open your cowl flaps, all of them, as far as they can go, you will be cooling your engines as much as you can, which is a good thing. But the negative side of that is that it's creating more drag on the airframe, because you've got these flaps sticking out all over the place, which means that you will be flying slower, but your engines will be cooler. But if you fly really, really fast with all your flaps in, so that they're not creating any drag on the airframe, your engine's going to be running hotter. But to complicate it even further, because you're flying faster through the air, there's more air that's going to be hitting the engine because you're going faster. So there's more air being sucked into the engine, which is in turn actually has a more of a cooling effect than if you're going slower. That's pretty much as simple as I can explain that this rule. I know with the A2A Spitfire, it's been modeled to the point where it's like with the radiators on a Spitfire, say, or any prop, you know, for that matter. If you close your radiator, it actually means that your airframe can go faster through the air because there's less drag, which means that there's more air being shoved into the engine, which actually has more of a cooling effect on the engine than if you had your radiator open. So it sounds kind of counterproductive to close your radiator if you want to cool your engine, but actually if you're getting up to the cruise phase of your flight in these prop liners and prop aircraft, closing the flaps increases aerodynamic ness. Oh my goodness, I can never think of the right word for that phrase, but whatever. So it increases your aerodynamic whatever of your airframe, making you go faster, meaning that your engines have more oxygen being pumped through them, meaning they will run cooler. So whenever you're manipulating these gauges, you've got those two the positive and the negative to have in your mind. Let's see. Right, let's go back to our engines here, because alright, we're up at 24,000, almost 25,000 feet now, so we're making good time here. Now, as we're coming further, higher and higher, right now we're in here, because there's less air, the propellers are going to be biting less air, which means that we're going to be going slower and slower, and our wings have less and less lift the higher we go, which means that we're going to have less and less airspeed. Gradually, very slowly, the higher we get, the less airspeed we're going to have, and the less vertical speed, vertical feet per minute we're going to have. So remember last time I looked at it, it was something like 700 or 800 or 600 feet per minute. Now we're down to 225, 224, sorry, 523, 522, 521, and 520 should be coming soon, 519. Okay, so that's steadily dropping because we're getting higher and higher. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make our climb a little more shallow and bring it from where it was down about 5.4 degrees of climb now. So we're doing a more shallow climb because we want to maintain our airspeed. And oh dear, look at that, our vertical climb per minute actually went negative there. We actually lost some altitude. That's okay. That's weird. Okay, we need to get up here. What are we doing? What are we doing? All right, let's make that a bit steeper then. Okay, right. And I think we could shove a bit more. You see, the higher and higher we go, the less air, the less pressure there is, which means that our manifold pressures actually go down. I'll talk more about that. I think the A2A simulations, Scott Gentile has done basically a review of how the manifold pressures work in the B17. So if you head over to YouTube and you go to the Shockwave Production YouTube page for A2A and have a look through and have a look at the B17 manifold pressure tutorial, and he should show you. What he does is he goes into the what is it, the yaw mode, where you can move the aircraft around without actually flying it, and he takes it up to 30,000 feet and then he takes it down. He goes up and down really quickly, and you see the manifold pressure actually going up and down. Basically, the manifold pressure is the pressure of the air before it goes into the engine. And so at sea level, the natural air pressure in the universe at sea level is 30 inches of manifold pressure. So whenever we have our engines turned off and we're just sitting on the ground at a gate, these will read 30 inches. That's where the 30.01 comes from in our 737. It's the Q and H basically, which is another name for whatever that is. I'm still learning. Anyway, so the higher up we go, the less our manifold pressure will read. So every now and then we can just edge on a little bit more throttle, just to keep our inches of manifold pressure in the right place. So you see, it's basically the higher and higher and higher you get, you just need to be micromanaging the systems. You need to be looking at how your altitude and your atmosphere outside the aircraft is changing, and with those changes you need to be on top of your systems, because if you're not on top of your systems as your aircraft is changing and your altitude is changing, then you're going to start to have problems where your engines are going to start, your plane's basically going to stall, or your engine's going to overheat, or stuff like that's going to happen. Bad stuff. So we're up at 27,000 feet now, and if you look at your speed indicator, you've got three indications on your altitude here. You've got your large needle, which is your hundreds of feet. You've got your smaller needle, which is your thousands of feet, and you've got like a tiny arrow there, which is actually pointing to your tens of thousands of feet. So the way we read our altitude at this altitude is we go 1, 2, 2.2, 10,000, 20,000, 25,000, 26, 27,000, 27,000 and 550 feet-ish. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it's pretty simple. Yeah, so there's actually not very far to go now from now until 30,000 feet where we level off. So I'm not going to break the tutorial and come back at cruise level, which I was originally planning of doing because I thought it would take us a while to get up to cruise, but it seems not. One thing I am going to look at is my propeller pitch, and at the moment it's at 77%. And the propeller pitch, I can't remember now actually if I explained it. I probably did explain it briefly in part 1, but the propeller pitch is something that always perplexed me until recently. Oh, actually until I started learning this aircraft, funnily enough. I didn't really understand what it was, and what it is the angle of the propeller when it grabs the air. So basically, as you're going through the air, what's pushing you through the air is your propellers, that they bite the air at a certain angle, and if you increase that angle, that means that your propellers are going to bite more air than they normally would, which means that you're going to go further through the air with the same amount of revolutions per minute. So it's just basically being more economical, and what it's doing is it's basically changing gear. So you're changing into a low gear to go fast without expending too much energy. Yeah, if that makes no sense to you, then that's my fault, and basically just like Google it, and it'll probably make sense then. But I'm going to leave that at 77% until we get to 30,000 feet, because we've only got 2,000 more feet before we level out, so that's not a problem. Everything seems to be running strangely smoothly. I was imagining a lot more problems than this, actually. Yeah, I was imagining that there would be issues with what was happening on. So as you can see, I manipulated those things manually, and I've just left them manually, and there hasn't been an issue with them yet. So what I could do... Oh look, actually my carb temps are slightly low. Obviously being up at 30,000 feet is going to make them low because it's not terribly warm up at 30,000 feet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close these flaps ever so slightly at 2 inches, just to bring that temperature up to about 22, 23. Yeah, you can already see them climbing slightly. They climbed about 3-4 degrees there. Our cylinder head temperatures, again, they're doing very nicely. I mean, I'm surprised how well that's actually going. Usually they're being they're right on the edge of overheating. Yeah, maybe it's just the flight engineer gets a bit daredevil on himself and just starts to do what he wants to do. As you can see with my tracker, I can actually move my head up high so we can get a nice perspective. Blah. Oh, there's a million words today. I just can't pronounce things today. Oh, by the way, as we get up to 30,000 feet, we're going to want to put on our anti-ice systems. So I'm going to put on my wings and my propellers. And my pitot heat is already on by default, which is a good thing, because your pitot tube is the tube that actually measures the speed of your aircraft. And if that freezes up, then you won't know how fast you're going. Basically, all the dials will actually freeze up and do silly things, or go back to 0 or something, because they're not actually reading any speed. And in newer aircraft, that becomes a big problem, because all the autopilot systems, they're so complex that they draw all the data, like from your altitude and you know, your speed and all that. And so if your pitot tube freezes up in a commercial plane today, that can cause a big problem, because then the autopilot doesn't know how fast you're going. So what it starts doing stupid stuff, because it's getting faulty information from the pitot tube, and in turn, if the pilots don't turn off the autopilot, then the autopilot can essentially crash the plane. And that has actually happened a few times in real life, where a plane has crashed because the pitot tube has been either blocked or frozen, or something went wrong. I do watch air crash investigations from time to time, so okay, coming up to 30,000 feet now, we've got trailers on the edges of our wingtips, which is a sign that we should be having more airspeed. It's basically a sign that we are not going as fast as we could be. And so what I'm going to do is, since we're pretty much at 30,000 feet now, I'm going to... Yeah, very soon now, I got only 100 feet more, and I'm going to hit the altitude hold switch just there. This is the fun part, because then we get to make the plane go as fast as it possibly can. Okay, so yeah, my airspeed is climbing slightly, and my wingtip trails have gone off. And actually, it looks like we just lost some altitude there. Whenever I don't know, whenever you go from a steeper climb to a shallower climb, you actually go negative, which is quite weird. We're actually only got 178 feet per minute now, and we'll just hold that actually steadily until we hit 30,000 feet. Which, if you look at our altimeter right there, wait until that needle gets to 0, and as soon as that needle gets to 0, I'm going to hit that switch. 69, 70, 80, 90, boom, 30,000 feet. Alright, I'm going to leave actually. I'm going to give us like, yeah, 50 more feet above.
Altitude, hold on.
Right, altitude, hold on. We know we're just above 30,000 feet, so if we descend at all for any reason, it's not like we're going to go down to, 29,000 feet, because we've got a little leeway of 90 feet. Still going up for some reason. Okay, so the autopilot, what it's going to do is it's going to trim the aircraft perfectly for 0 vertical feet per minute. And already you'll see our airspeed is starting to increase because we're not climbing anymore. 145, 146. If we go to our little checklist here, engine 2 is 202 degrees Celsius. That's turbo 4 as well is at 130 degrees. Well, I'm not really into turbos yet, so I could not really say. He's got what? Let's see. He's got 93% turbo in right now, which is a big amount. And the reason is because the air is so thin at 30,000 feet that you need to do some. You can't just rely on propellers grabbing the air. There's just not enough air at this height. So what happens is you need to take the exhaust from your engine and you need to loop it back into the system, which basically super pressurizes or supercharges your system to have more energy come out of the engines and more thrust. So that's what that's for. But I haven't really learned how to manually manipulate that, so I'm usually just going to leave that at in autopilot mode. But the general rule with your turbo and supercharger settings is that the higher you go, the more you're going to need. So on the ground, you basically need 0 on the ground. And these dials here are to do with your exhaust back pressure of your turbos. These are dual needle dials. These are your temperatures. But I really do not know much about how to, deal with them. So maybe in a later tutorial, if you guys want to know about that, I'll try and do something about that. Yeah, basically, I forgot to say at the beginning, but if you guys have questions on anything I'm doing, please ask. I'm not doing this to make money. I'm doing this because I enjoy doing this, and I would, if you guys, if it brings you enjoyment too, then it brings me enjoyment. I mean, I've had a few comments on my first video, and a few people subscribe and say, we're looking forward to number 2, and we're enjoying them. That's really nice to have someone come and say that, because it's like you're doing what you love, and people are telling you that they appreciate it, and it's great. So if you guys have questions, if you guys hate what I'm doing, please tell me why you do, and I'll try and correct my mistakes or whatever. But I'm not a professional at this, obviously, so don't expect that I'm going to be like 5 stars or whatever. Alright, so our knots have climbed up to 163 now. Our temperatures are actually now coming down because we're quite high up. So what we're going to do is we're now going to close our cowl flaps. This is where it gets really fun, because we start to go nice and fast here, and we start eating the miles like nothing you've ever seen in a prop aircraft. Okay, so we're actually in the high hundreds Celsius, so we could close our cowl flaps, and in closing our cowl flaps, we're causing the engines to run hotter by closing them. But of course, we have leeway, as you can see. To use a nautical term, sorry, my words are all over the place today. From 200 to 240 to 250.
Hello
so
again.
We've got about.
This is your captain speaking. We have now reached our cruising altitude. Well, this is Boeing country up here, where the flying is fast.
Oh
we
yeah.
invite you down to the lounge at the lower level aft to enjoy our unique lounge and bar. The only onboard lounge and bar on any commercial aircraft in the world today.
And in these days as well. I mean, well, actually no. Correct me if I'm wrong. The A380 now has, like, the luxury version of the A380 has like a bar and stuff like that as well. So yeah, but that's cool. I love the captain of the ship add-on for this. I mean, if you have this aircraft or you're thinking about it, don't just buy this in AccuSim. get the captain of the ship add-on, please, because you're going to appreciate it so much more. So as we closed, as you can see now, we closed our cowl flaps, and that actually didn't do much. So I'm just going to go close them completely. And carefully monitor them. And if you go and look outside, you can see that they are absolutely completely closed. And soon what I'm going to do is close my carburetor intercooler flaps. Let me just check my carb air. Okay, that's not too bad. Actually, I'm going to leave them there because, well, I'm going to close them a bit. Alright, I've got to monitor that as well. Oh. 130. 133, 134. That's not good. Okay, so they don't want to be closed completely. They want a little bit of air. Alright, let's give them just... Let's give them almost 1 inch there. So it's about always basically manually tweaking everything. And of course that's what the flight engineer is doing. He's just sitting back here in this seat manually tweaking things and making sure nothing goes wrong, while you, the captain, sits over there in your...
carburetor temps are getting hot.
Oh, you sit over there and you get to you can concentrate on fully flying the plane, and he can sit back here doing this. But of course, whenever you've got nothing else to do... Oh my goodness. Yeah, that wasn't a good idea. I closed them a bit too soon. How's our speed doing? 174 knots. We can do better than that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to punch in some more... Oh, dude, I'll tell you what I forgot to do. That's why we're not getting enough speed. My propeller pitch. That is basically why I'm not getting the speed that I was expecting to get. I'm going to move that down to 60%. And 60%, I've been told, is the ultimate setting to get as much speed. And as you can see, 178 knots now, 179. We will be climbing. Our speed will be climbing. I'm just going to push. Actually, our throttles are all the way forward. I'm surprised. They are fully on. And yeah, they are 100% go. And yeah, that's amazing. That this is actually the first time this has happened. That the systems are all okay, and we've got 100% power going to the engines and 93% turbo. Yeah, so our knots are going to start climbing now. I want to see. Actually, yeah, right. So this is actually the one thing.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Oh, we've got our turbo. Turbo 4 is 140 degrees and climbing. Right. Let's just bring them back to a cruise speed. Yeah, look, now if you read on the dash here, it says do not exceed 0.58 Mach, and we are 0.53, so we don't need to go any faster than this now. So I'm just dialing back my engines. And the manifold pressure is nothing at all. That's 35 inches manifold pressure.
Carburetor temperature is getting a bit low.
Oh, getting low now. That's weird. Let me have a look. Okay, we need to close them a bit. I opened them a bit too much. You see, this is where tweaking. This is where your live engineer comes into play, because he is sitting back here doing this all the time. He's just manipulating these so that nothing ever goes wrong. Yeah, but those temperatures are perfect. I think they're perfect. Let me see my speed again. 191 knots. I mean, this is ideal. This is ideal. Yeah. So this is basically the way it's going to be until we get to our descent phase. The only other thing I can see myself doing is really just turning left or right. Let me see. Shift 5. Let's see. It's gonna update fairly soon. Yeah. Okay. So we're here, and we need to be over here. So we're pretty much already halfway. We've just climbed to our cruise, or almost just over climbed to our cruise, and we need to get to EGPH, which is basically the name for Edinburgh. So we need to turn to 320. So if we go down here to our compass, we turn this little knob here. As you can see, that manipulates our heading bug. If we get that pointing roughly towards EGPH, we put down our thing there, and again we're going to manipulate this little knob slightly to the left. As you can see, we bank. We don't really need to bank very much. We can do a nice gradual turn. If we bank too much, we'll start losing altitude. Look at the clouds up here. This is really nice. I think the settings, the weather settings, are just on a fine day, and I've got FTX England here. And that is the climb and cruise phase of the flight. Let me just make sure I'm not overshooting my my mark here. Now I'm just going to look at my compass with this in view. Almost there. A little bit more. Just bring up Shift F5 there. Yeah, you see, once the white arrow just gets over the top of Edinburgh, our heading, we will bring this handle back to 0. I don't know if you can see that, but it says autopilot turn handle and in brackets 8. And whenever I twiddle my knob over my middle mouse button over it, it's going to go back to 0. Okay, we're going to start going back to 0. 6, 7, 6, 8, 9. Oh, I should be going down. Okay. Go the other way. 3, 0. Okay. Boom. 0. Okay, we are at 184 knots, which is Mach 0.5. I can live with that, you know. Yeah, this looks like the end of part 2, people. I hope you've enjoyed it. Again, I mean, apologies for my rambling nature. I'm not a YouTuber. This is my second tutorial in my entire life, so hopefully I have a few years to perfect my style. But I've enjoyed this a lot, actually, more than I thought I would. Not much has gone wrong for me in this this tutorial. Where potentially the engines, you know, with the temperatures and everything, could actually have been quite a pain to me, but they weren't. They behaved themselves for me, which in a tutorial you always want, you know, things to behave for you, because you know, it's a tutorial. But again, if anyone has any questions, please do ask. Yeah, and if there was something particularly annoying about my style or anything, please tell me, and I can try and do better in the next ones. This is a learning process for me as well as you know, for you guys. Hopefully, that's why I'm doing this, is to basically learn myself. It's not all about you guys. I mean, come on. So yeah, please leave any comments, and I will see you in part 3. And in part 3, actually, I will be from here. I will probably come back to you in part 3 up here close to EGPH, where we start our descent, and then we'll descend all the way to the airport, and then we'll land. So I'll probably do descent and landing in one whole tutorial, and then after that I'll go into tutorials like I'll do a tutorial on the fire emergency system, which I'm really looking forward to because I haven't actually played around with the fire emergency system yet. But that is for another day, and I will see you guys later. Alright, bye.